Hello, everybody. Good evening. How are you all doing? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please let me know you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello.
All right. Hello, good evening. Welcome to
Good evening.
great. Yeah, I see the emojis. I'm glad that we're all joining at this time. It's going to be a beautiful evening, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you to yet another Friday on the Workmate Startup Acceleration Workshop. We've had really amazing speakers over the past 3 weeks, and we're happy that we are in this week. We'll be taking two facilitators who will be taking two major key topics in the startup ecosystem. Our first speaker will be touching on the Owambe Architecture, and our second speaker will be speaking on raising funding for your startup. This evening, I'll be moderating this session with a member of our team, Ianu Faomi. So at any time you don't hear my voice, it's most likely her voice that you'll be hearing. So um, I hope that we've been having an amazing time. And I appreciate if there's anyone who's been here for any of the previous classes, even if it's not last week, even if it's the week before last, but you've joined at any point at all in the process, and you'd like to share one or two things you've learned or something you've put into practice in your startup, in your business, in your team, and has been giving you some level of feedback, you'd like to share with the team to encourage us as well, would really appreciate to hear that. So just indicate and then you can speak. Okay, so I am not seeing anybody indicating in any way. So that's giving me a cue that maybe not really. Well, for the sake of our time, okay, Startup Campus just raise your hand. All right, Startup Campus, you have a minute to speak.
Yeah, once again, good evening. My name is Omar Adam from Startup Campus. Yeah, so far it has been a wonderful section. Most especially, I really enjoyed the product development section. It took us through the whole journey. It was really motivating and inspiring. And I believe I've implemented some few things from the whole section. Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. That's very good to hear. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And please, after the session tonight, share a little bit about what you and your team are doing at Startup Campus. Let's have here so that in case there's someone who has an idea or something that could help your business, you could share and exchange ideas together there. Not just you, any other person who's working on a project or on their startup that would love to share, please feel free. You could just write a brief, share a link to maybe your website or something. Let's all engage and go together. All right, that's beautiful. So without wasting any much of our time, I'll be going ahead to welcome our experienced facilitator first, experienced facilitator for this evening. I'll tell you a bit about him. He'll be taking us on the Owambe architecture. His name is Mr. Diret Domnan, the Owambe architecture, the event driven experience. So while I introduce him to us, you know how we do it in this community. So you give him all of beautiful, makes sense. I see it coming already. Nice. So I don't need to speak much. All right, so let me tell you a bit about Mr. Diret before we gave him the floor to speak to us. Diret Domnan, aka Deven, is a systems engineer for Cloudflare. Amazing. He is based in Munich, Germany, and has a bachelor's in computer engineering from FUTMinna. He loves to build things on the side to help tackle difficult concepts while actively contributing to the open source ecosystem. That's great. His deep dive articles into concepts like Docker primitives, hashes, databases are quite extensive and can be found on his Medium channel. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me make welcome our speaker, first speaker for tonight, Mr. Diretnan Domnan.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Diret. Welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. Yeah.
yeah, you have the floor with us to share until 6:37.
Okay. So I decided to share my face because it's more personal this way. There's no nameless, faceless behavior, and everyone can see me as I speak. So first of all, Owambe Architecture, right? I think the name caught a lot of people's attention, but it's a general concept that we're all familiar with, or at least if you've been in the industry for a while, like you're familiar with. We all know like the environs of like Owambe in Nigeria and how it's like really difficult to get food at these events. If we're being honest, like the reason why you can't get food is often linked to like embezzlement or corruption, but like the chaotic nature of the event itself, it always lends itself to this particularly powerful analog in computing. So I like to use it as like an analogy. So sequential execution is the enemy, right? What do I mean by that? I mean, like we're all familiar with how queues work in real life. You line up and things get executed one after the other, which is a very simple primitive, right? Like we can stand by that. But then like modern CPUs and GPUs are like an immense gift that keep on giving. Like there's just so much more we can do with compute nowadays that we couldn't do like 30, 40 years ago. And if you keep executing things sequentially, right? Like we don't utilize that. You can imagine if your browser, if your search engines, if your applications had to do things sequentially, like the slowdown would be immense. So the next thing is Amdahl's law, right? Amdahl's law essentially tells us how, like, I know it's jarring to jump from like a party to math, but I want to just explain this briefly because it's really, really important. Yeah. This is like, just consider this like a simple like computer science class, right? And Amdahl's law also applies like across the board, even outside computer science, because it's just a general way to think about how you can parallelize work. So I can ask like a simple question, for instance, like how is it possible that, or how is it not possible that 9 women can give birth to a child in 1 month? Right? Like regardless of how many women you put together, it's always going to take approximately 9 months to have a baby. Right? And the reason being, having a baby is actually just a sequential task. And the amount of speed up you can obtain is like, it's guided by this particular formula where you have your 1 divided by your sequential tasks plus your parallel tasks divided by your number of cores. In this case, you can think of cores as workers or whatever it is. So I want to build a house, for instance, and I just have 1 worker, right? No matter how parallelized building a house is, and it is, like there's a lot of parts that you can make parallel. If I just have 1 worker, it's going to take that worker, let's say maybe 10 days, right? For simple analogy, say 10 days to build a house. But now I say, okay, if I get 10 workers, does that make it possible that I can build this house in 1 day? And so with this formula, you can basically reason about it. If there's too many sequential things to do in building a house, you limit the amount of speed up you can get. And in the end, you're unable to build that house in 1 day. But if you can somehow make the entire task parallel, right? If you can make the entire task parallel, S goes to 0, your P divided by your N, and you get like the maximum amount of speed up that matches your N. Event-driven architecture, then, I'd explain it like this. It's a software design pattern, right? Where like the flow of the program is determined by events, not necessarily the way you would define your client server architecture, where things come in and are executed sequentially down to like the very last, right? In this kind of architecture, like state changes and like occurrences are what drives your program, right? It makes it like highly scalable, and like it's very useful for creating like decoupled systems. And once you have like decoupled systems, right, that's the joy of having decoupled systems. Once you do have decoupled systems, you're able to scale them out individually. If you've noticed that, okay, the bottleneck to my entire application is this aspect that takes care of, I don't know, people ordering a certain high in demand product. So I'm able to scale my order system to match. The events in this case, we can think of it as like you're entering into a party, right? This event spawns like a number of workers. Like in the beginning, if we had followed like the standard way where we just have one queue, one waiter serving food, everybody that comes in just lines up, they approach the waiter, they get their food, and so on and so forth. We'll probably leave that party really, really late. Yes. But now, whenever you step into the party, you've triggered an event. Yeah. And that event then spawns a number of workers that are able to carry out some specific tasks. You can think of it as like having multiple waiters now. As soon as you step into the event, the waiter bringing food comes, drops the food on your table. The person bringing drinks comes, drops it on your table, water, small chops, and so on and so forth. Right. So what happens in event-driven architecture is that like you get some inputs, yeah, and like that input is usually like user behavior. Maybe like the user clicks on something, or there's some form submission, or there's like some external signal that you come up with, and then you pipe them into some underlying broker or system, and then you have people, or you have consumers, applications on the other end, or clients consuming these events and performing like some kind of processing. So there's two broad types of EDA. Yeah, there's either publisher subscriber, or popularly known as pub sub models, and then there's event streaming. Like they're really closely linked, but then like the differences for pub sub models, like the publishers send a message to an underlying message broker, right? The subscribers eagerly consume those messages. So think about the way like you'd subscribe to one blog, or you subscribe to my Medium, right? And you'd get notifications whenever I publish a message. You can subscribe to multiple mediums, like multiple medium blogs that way. You could subscribe to other types of blogs that get published, and you receive all those messages. So in that case, you're a subscriber, and then like there's publishers actually publishing. So like some examples, some common examples of these are like, we have Google PubSub, we have Redis. Most people don't know, but you can also use Redis for like PubSub, although it's not, in my experience, like the best. Apache messaging queue. And then in this kind of architecture, like subscribers typically would handle like their own load balancing techniques, right? They'd handle the messages being pushed, and find a way to make sure like they hold on to, or they declare idempotency, right? So what's let me just briefly explain idempotency. It's just essentially you want something to happen in a consistent way and a behavior to not be repeated, right? So you can think of a function where if you pass in an input, right, you always get the same output regardless. So if I pass in whatever I multiply by 0 always ends up as 0, right? So the 0 function itself is idempotent. So usually in these kinds of systems, your inputs, you expect your inputs to be idempotent. But event streaming takes like a different approach, right? In the sense that messages are not necessarily consumed immediately, right? The messages are pushed onto a stream. That stream is persisted regardless of consumption. So you can think of multiple people drinking from a stream. Like you don't exhaust the stream necessarily. New drinkers can come, drink from the stream. They can even go backwards towards like the origin of the stream and so on and so forth. So that's like analogous to retrieving like old messages from that same stream. And you'll be able to follow usually some type of cursor, right? And so in that case, I'd explain some of like popular concepts that I'd really like us to get in like EDA, right? The first being delivery guarantees. And then we have order, we have filtering and fan outs. And then we finally explain like failure and unprocessed messages, right? There are a lot of concepts in EDA, like it's, I'd say implicitly chaotic. But these concepts, if you think about them, they help you bring about like questions that basically guide how you want your system to behave and how you want to control like the scalability of your system, right? So often we build these systems, we want them to scale, we want them to go to be able to handle like 1 million users at once without the system crashing. And if you remember, like when the web was still relatively new, like crashes used to happen like a lot more often, right? Like you'd go to a website, once you're like 100 on your website, you're unable to sign into your school portal and things like that. So scalable systems are something we actually care about, right? And answering some of these questions, or at least thinking about them, would help us to come up with answers and then build these scalable systems. So the first one is delivery guarantees, right? What are delivery guarantees like in reference to EDA? Well, if a message is sent, it's guaranteed to be delivered. In that case, if it's guaranteed to be delivered, then it means what we have is called an at least once guarantee. Because we are certain that it's delivered at least one time, but that does not guarantee that messages might not be received more than once. So meaning we are saying you get this message at least once, and the burden is often on then like consumers to ensure idempotency. So this kind of thing is quite common in chat systems. Like you don't see it on like your WhatsApp, on your Twilio, Signal, whatever you're using to chat and keep in contact with people. There's usually like at least once guarantee, but a lot of times messages are sent multiple times, but these consumers just have a way to ensure that if you've sent a message once before, like this does not, even if I receive that same message again because of network lag or whatever the cause is, like this doesn't show up twice on your user interface, for instance. So there's also at most once guarantee. So that's where we're guaranteeing that messages are delivered at most once. In that case, it's very possible that messages don't get delivered at all. Like, so this is often useful in like applications where we don't necessarily care if we lose. I mean, in our chat systems, we care if we lose like a message or another because that's important. But in applications where we don't really care, like when we are sending telemetry or we are sending metrics, it might be important, but one lost extra additional count to a data point, it's not so important. So in that case, at most once guarantee works. Like we'll find that it's going to get there, and if it never gets there and it's not happening so consistently, we still get fairly accurate results. And then like exactly once guarantees means like the message is going to be delivered exactly once. So this particular case is very, very difficult to build and usually often ill-advised, except in maybe like strongly safely critical systems. Because this particular case puts strain on like the producer, the consumer, the network. Everybody has to check that this message has been sent once and it has been received once and it should never be sent again. So there's checks on almost every level at that point. The next thing is order, right? Like idea is to find the order in chaos. Like ordering of messages is always like a strong requirement for some systems. And that often leads to them like using like first in, first out primitives or like centralized processing. However, event-driven architecture thrives on like general chaos, right? And that's good because in this case, a lack of ordering means that we don't have to do things sequentially. Systems can process things out of order So long as we're able to handle duplicates, we're able to do look out for all these edge cases, like it's fine for things to be processed out of order. And then you can have multiple systems, each scaling differently to meet your requirements. So then you'd ask, like, then what happens if I absolutely need order, if I need A to happen before B? In event-driven architecture, in that case, it means you would have to then like most likely further divide your system into like smaller subsystems that like implement aggregation type techniques. But if you're doing that, you just have to remember that the more sequential operations I do have, like the more I'm sacrificing my speed up. Filtering and fan outs. So this is another aspect. And there's like disadvantages to like either approach, as with everything in computing, right? So filtering means messages do not get duplicated, because you can imagine like we have a central topic, we have subscribers to that topic, we have publishers. As soon as messages get to that topic, there is specific filters that are implemented that maybe say, okay, these types of messages should be filtered out, or these types of messages should be filtered out. And then every consumer can basically tie themselves to a filter. So if I tie myself to a filter, I get the messages through the lens of that filter. What that means is, in this case, messages are not duplicated, there's just specific filters. But the problem is, the more filters I want, like the more I have to add over time, right? While for fan out, it means that I then have, rather than using one central topic, I have to use 2 of those or 3 of those. And then I do the filtering like beforehand, and I send like the specific messages that I know a specific consumer would need. And those consumers then just attach themselves to the topics directly. In that case, there might be duplicate messages because I might want to send the same message to maybe 3 different subscribers, right? So fan out has a bit of duplication, but duplication is not always so bad, right? So like a perfect scenario in this is like, imagine if we marked everyone that had gotten food with like white charcoal. So we use white charcoal on your forehead if you have gotten food. We use black charcoal on your forehead if you've gotten drinks. Yes? The bouncers at the gates would still allow everyone else, like everyone gets in, whether or not you have white charcoal, black charcoal, or no charcoal. The bouncers will allow you to come in. Yeah? But the food waiters will have to filter out those who have like white charcoal on their forehead. You're like, I've already given these people food, I'm filtering them out. And the drinks waiters would then have to filter out those with black charcoal, and everyone else they can serve. So that kind of thinking is what applies here. And the last but not least is failure and unprocessed messages. Even in the best systems, I don't care how you architect it, like failure can and will occur. So what do you do? So this is strongly linked against like the discussion on like delivery guarantees. Because when like failure occurs, like your system has to be in place to ensure some sort of like recovery process or mechanism. What typically happens in EDA is that publishers will continually provide a message until like subscribers acknowledge. So in that case, it's like at least once guarantee, because it's very possible that in my trying to make sure that the subscriber has acknowledged, I send multiple messages like of the same message more than once, right? Or let's say if we never care about like acknowledgements, we can then also still move unprocessed messages to some other topic elsewhere, and then we have somebody look at it and be like, okay, why did these topics not work? Was there something broken with the system or broken with the message itself, right? In event streams, the topic or the messages stay on the stream, right? So because of that, it's very possible to implement replays and like history, and typically it's used for like a lot of like big data processing, because I can go back and say, okay, how much traffic have I had between now and January, and I might be processing like millions of data points. So it's not all roses in like EDA, right? there's a lot of complexity to EDA, and that's like the first downside. Because it's mostly asynchronous in nature, there tends to be like a lot of complexity for design. And so a lot of organizations, even in like Nigeria and around the world like tend to like shy away from it. They're like, we know this simple architecture that we have. Things come in, we process it, things go out, that's all. But then using that at the cost of scale, when you do need scale, it would come back to haunt you. There's also like the additional difficulty in debugging and monitoring. Because now you've taken a system that was one system or at most two, and you split it up into like a lot of systems. So when you have to debug faults, you have to scan across the ocean, right? So whenever you want to trace the execution of a particular message, you have to basically move across multiple services or consumers and find out how each one behaved, right? There's systems to do that make like monitoring and tracing easier in like distributed systems. But like this is definitely still a downside to it. Another downside is like eventual consistency if you think it's a downside, right? So eventual consistency isn't always a downside, but in some systems, we want our data to be there immediately. We want services or our view of the system to always be consistent. We can't anticipate that users are, false tolerant to steal data. For let's say maybe a live score application site, if I'm watching football and I'm a few like 1 minute behind time, like it's not so bad, right? It would eventually be consistent. But in some systems, that's not acceptable. And final downside is network overhead. Because now you split up your system into a lot of places. So now you're sending a lot of messages. Before, if you were consuming like a certain bandwidth, you've gone over that, right? You're sending messages, you're duplicating messages, you're doing a lot more things that require network overhead. So the point is, the main enemy of good is perfect. What I like to mean by that is, in your chase for perfection, a lot of times you miss good. So like that means like in your existential search for like a silver bullet, like to fix all life problems, there's never been like a place in life that you say, I found one silver bullet that does something and does it perfectly, fixes all my problems. So that's the same thing even here in like when we're speaking about like architectures, right? Like a lot of times you want to architect that perfect system that has no flaw, it has no failure, it just has consistent uptime. But even like bank companies are never hitting 100% uptime. Because even if they had 100% uptime, there would be some natural disaster from somewhere that would take out some data center or something. Like that's just the nature of life, right? So at the risk of sounding philosophical, just enjoy like the Owambe. Like it's sometimes okay to lose that message. Sometimes it's even better to fail fast, right? And retry with like idempotency checks and all of that. But like it's really important that you are able to understand the constraints of your system and what you're hoping to achieve. In some cases, it's we don't want that behavior, right? Like if it's safety critical systems, we don't want that behavior. But we've somehow convinced ourselves that a lot of our systems are safety critical, but they are not so safety critical. So these are my socials, and I've come to the end of my talk. You can follow me. I write sometimes on Medium. I write on databases, and I have a WhatsApp channel as well, where I occasionally post articles written by other people, right, that I find really interesting. So if you follow that WhatsApp channel, like you get like a brief summary of some really interesting articles, and you're able to keep up to date with like the cutting edge of the industry. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. That was very comprehensive, straight to the point, and well explained. Thank you so much for taking us through that journey. Could you, yeah, so if you could help us, like copy and paste the handles in the in-call messages so that it will be easier for our people to just, click and then connect. That would be very helpful.
Sure.
Nevertheless, those who are unable to get it now could also get it when we share the resources from the class today. So yes, Zachariah Adebayo, there is room for questions. So anyone who wants to ask a question now, please indicate. We'll be giving 3 slots for questions. so that we can contain it with our time. So, Mr. Adebayo, I believe you are the first. Then any other person who is interested in asking a question, please raise your hand so that I can identify you. Then we can know the three people that we're working with for Mr. Direct to answer, and then we'll proceed. If you have a question, raise your hand now. We might not be able to take hands after he has started answering questions. Okay, Mr. Adebayo, you can go. Mr. Zakaria, you can go now.
All right, thank you. So, Diretnan, I don't know if I'm correct with the name anyway. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks for the knowledge shared. It was a great one. I just wanted to ask about. So I think there was a part where you mentioned about streaming, something around streaming, I guess, where you were talking about. So it's pretty much like a stream where so many consumers can come, and it's not necessarily like messages do not disappear. Maybe that's the concept. I mean, that's the notion I got about it. So I was trying to really understand, because I was a bit following it with I mean, thinking about RabbitMQ, brokerage system at that point, actually. So I know for most consumers, right, when they get messages, right, they could, and messages are messages are dumped onto their queue, and then I think the if I'm not wrong, I might not be sure. I'm not sure, right? I might be wrong here, but when messages come to the queue of a consumer, they can either at the point of them acknowledging it, that's when the messages get queued, right? Specifically to RabbitMQ. I don't know if it's the same with other broker systems anyway. So in that concept of streaming now, right, which I understood to be that, okay, there's a kind of central stream where messages go, and then all consumers can consume from there. Messages are durable in a sense, like they can always come at any time to consume messages from it. So I was trying to really understand, because thinking to the route of RabbitMQ implementation, I guess the consumer himself has to acknowledge that he has received the message before the message queues, and each messages just go to each consumer's queue, depending on whatever they subscribe to, whatever exchange they are bound to, and by whatever binding system they use, right? So could you give more clarity to that?
So yeah, that's a really good question. So you have to think of brokers in that sense a bit different from event streams. So where you most likely find, like I said, like there's two broad ways you could do this. There's pub/sub models, and then there's event streams. So those are quite similar, but I think RabbitMQ would then fall under pub/sub systems, right? So what that usually means is messages often get like consumed, right, once there has been like some sort of acknowledgement. But for event streams, the way they think of data is somewhat immutable, right? Like they have some maximum amount they can keep definitely over time, right? But they think about it as somewhat immutable. So every consumer essentially just has, you can think of it as a cursor. So I'm looking at the stream, I have a cursor, I know that, okay, I've read the first event, I've read the second event, I've read the third event. So I just keep advancing my cursor over time. That's how I read new events. Yes. But whenever I want to go back, those messages are still there. I can always move my cursor backwards. And what that means is that whenever I have new consumers for that stream, those consumers can start their cursor at whatever they want. They can go back and read like old messages. So that helps, because I mean, something like WhatsApp, for instance, doesn't use that, because if they did, when I join like a group, I would get access to like all the old messages, for instance. So I can be able to go back, see all the old messages, and then that would be fine. But in this case, like they would use something more akin to like pub/sub, because I only then see new messages from when I subscribe. I hope that makes sense.
Yep, it does. Yeah, it does. It clarifies it. Could you give a technology? Maybe I can just go read further about that. A technology that kind of implements the event stream protocol thingy.
Sorry?
No, I was asking if you could give me an example of a technology that I could maybe further it around that
Yeah,
implements event stream protocol, like event stream implementation stuff.
yeah. So it's Apache Kafka. So that's like the most popular. Almost everyone uses Kafka. It processes like millions of messages. So if you
Okay.
want to do anything at like scale, you most likely use Apache Kafka combined with like Zookeeper and some other things. So yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that was great. Please let us once more appreciate Mr. Direct. It's been a very exciting evening together. Thank you so much, Direct, for honoring us and coming and sharing from your wealth of knowledge and experience. We do not take it for granted, and we sincerely do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
All right. Yeah, Yana, you can take over now.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's been an amazing time so far. Thank you so much, our first speaker, for that amazing session. I want to believe that we all enjoyed the first section of the training tonight. And I don't want to just assume that you're saying a yes. I want to see a yes in the chat, but I want to see how many of us have enjoyed the section so far. Else, we won't continue to the next section. I will just apologize to our second speaker and say, come, let's do it. Let's do it some other time. But I trust you guys to tell me a big yes, yes, and yes. All right. So I want to say yes, 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 yes. So we can move on. Yes, yes. I can see your yes, your yeses. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our first speaker, for that wonderful section. So we move on to the second speaker right now, and how we'll be taking his viral before it comes up. So what's our next topic? Our topic is your startup fundraising strategy. You know, I like this topic particularly because I'm a social entrepreneur, and what social entrepreneurs used to look for is fund. How do we raise funds for our enterprise? How do you raise fund? How do you raise funds? So I'm really eager to hear from our speaker and to see how he would do so. I mean, do justice to this topic. So, and his name is Francis Ajadioni. I don't know if I called that correctly. I'm sorry, sir, if I missed it out, but I know the Francis is well, is clear, and yeah, we have Mr. Francis. So I'll just take it about quickly. Ajadioni Francis Olufikayo is a seasoned technical project manager with an over a decade of experience in solution engineering. He has multiple degrees in software engineering, cybersecurity, and business technology. Wow. I want to be seeing our hands clapping together as I'm reading this because this is not easy. Is actively involved in mentoring and partnering with organizations like Engineers Without Borders. I like the energy. Thank you so much. I like the energy. Thank you. I like the energy. Yeah. Is actively involved in mentoring and partnering with organizations like Engineers Without Borders, USA, and GIZ ZNI. Additionally, he has founded and co-founded multiple ventures and is a mentor and educator in various capacities, focusing on digital literacy and technological empowerment for youth in Africa. He has helped 11 companies raise over $1 million. Wow. And currently mentors Elium Health, the #1 health tech company in Africa, in fundraising to achieve Series C. Wow, this is a big bio. Please, can we give a round of applause for this man as we call him on stage to take us through the topic, your startup fundraising strategy. You're welcome on board, sir. As you can see, we're ready for you. The energy is high. We're ready for you. You're welcome, Mr. Francis. You have the floor. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Iyano Fawumi. Hey, my name Ajadioni is Do. All right.
Ah, I'm sorry. I am a foreign Yoruba girl. I'm sorry. I mean, from the house side, I'm sorry. You're welcome, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Diretnan, big shout out to you. Thank you for that Owambe Architecture. right? And Mr. Abu, I'm seeing so many familiar faces. Steven, Audrey, it's been a while. Your Excellency, Ma Mary, and the rest of others. Big shout out to you guys. And it seems today's speaker is just FUTMinna alumni, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's not beat around the bush. Let's get to why we are here today. Rich King. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'll be sharing my screen, and I took a jab, Mr. Deadnam. I took a jab. Me, I will not be showing my face, so but we are face. We are face. We are face. All right. Okay, let me do this. Okay, sorry. Permission to share. I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay. All right, please. Can we confirm if my screen sharing is okay?
Clear and visible, sir.
All right, all right. Let me see if I can adjust the. All right. So I believe we are all with our notes, pad notes technology, right? Or voice recorder. I know this session is being recorded as well, but however, it's one of those things that helps you retain the information being shared, right? So that profile that you read, okay, thank you for that. But I can confidently say everything there is true. So let's get into it. I know there are some people here that are doing social impacts, and there are some people here who they are for private limited liability company. And I'm going to bring it home. I'm in Nigeria. I work from Nigeria most of the time. My location is Lagos, actually, right? And to get started, one thing that startups or businesses need to realize is that there is a changing landscape of how to do things. There is a changing or constantly changing landscape of how to do things. So I remember I at Lagos State Business School or Lagos Business School, I went for my MBA around 2019, right? So there was a particular course that was business communication. They gave me B. So I had that time earlier this year, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to the school and retake that particular course. But on getting there, the curriculum I saw for MBA, it was so sweet and enticing. That's why I joined that cohort again with a little bit of top up. And I was like, okay, this is entirely different from what we learned in 2019. That is just to show that there is ever evolving landscape of how to do things. All right, so I'm going to lay the foundation, then address each sector or each type of corporate structure that you have, right? And here in our screen, we are seeing key factors that necessitate a fundraising plan. Why would you fundraise? Or why will you look for external money? Why will you look for investors' money? I want to believe that you are being honest with yourself that whatsoever money you want to take out of your pocket into the business or into the startup is not enough. Your co-shareholders or your directors that you guys are founding the company together, the money you people are pulling or bringing is not enough, right? The products you guys want to build, it might help you guys to build it, but in project management, there's something we call life cycle costing. That is, at the end of building the products, putting it out in the market, we have maintenance costs, operational costs, things like this, right? How long would you last, even with your money from your friends, money from your shareholders? So these are the things that once you've been honest with yourself, or you guys are honest with each other, you will say, or you will see that, okay, we need to go and get other people's money. And yes, on the other side of the world, there are people who wants to invest in substantial potential things, right? But let me say it here. In fundraising, is not only about building applications, it's not only about building websites. Let me repeat, to raise fund or in your startup is not just the next application that is out there, mobile application or website. No. So you need to take a seat back and research. Could it just be an algorithm that we are going to build and begin selling, or make it open source? Right. Like this Owambe architecture now, you've seen it, you might want to research on it, build it in a more proper or more how should I call it, innovative way. Right. So it's not just mobile apps and websites that people fund. People fund visions. Before now, we have industries that still exist today, even in Nigeria. People fund vision. People fund fashion. Right. They give money to all these things. So it's not just mobile applications or websites that is the only product that can raise you money. So even all these MSC, that's small medium scale enterprises, things like that, yes, they raise money, they get good money. And if I should be honest, based on statistics, the non-governmental, that's the NGOs, the NPOs, non-profit organizations, they receive free money or more money in terms of fundraising grants than the private sector. Yeah, so I stand to be challenged on that. Okay, so factors that necessitates a fundraising plan. How much should you raise? How much should you raise versus how much are you willing to give? One of the plans or one of the ways to raise money as a startup or as you're starting out is to issue shares, right? Fine. You might not even have any products before you would want to incorporate. Then after you've incorporated, that is, you register with a business CAC, NITDA, you're able to get some of your licenses, things like that, right? Then you can do post incorporation changes. But how much should you raise? These are still questions that would necessitate you raising or having a fundraising plan. You need a plan to fundraise, to get money from investors, or for investors to come. And what's the fundraising plan? If you are focused on a product development and the total cost of the product development is like maybe 50 million naira. Okay, let me not even call big number, 10 million naira, 5 million naira, right? Should that be the amount you would raise? Even if you want to raise just that amount, what's the plan on paying back? What's the plan on the shares? If you are issuing company shares out, what kind of shares are you also issuing out? Is it a priority share? Is it ordinary shares? Under the aspect of priority shares, these are shares that even if it is 5%, it has 3 seats in the board of director. Or anytime that it comes to vote, any votes or any voting that that person does is equals to like 3 people voting. So you need a plan, right? For how long, or if this money should come in, okay, how fast can we make it back and return it? So, and there are different types of fundraising plan, but you need a plan to fundraise or to get money from investors. At the end of the day, looking at advantages and disadvantages of most of this fundraising plan, you would have to either give up or readjust your plan again. That's okay. We'll just be in the market for now. There was a realistic valuation. There are so many factors to consider in your valuation. What do you mean by valuation? What are you worth? What is your idea worth? What is your company worth? What is your team worth? Right. I'm going to share another presentation slide in which we are going to look deeper into those things. But your realistic valuation is not because of how you are feeling about the idea. Let me break it to you. You might have even heard this somewhere. That idea that you have in your head that's giving you sleepless nights, you are not the only person operating in that frequency or that has that idea. I can bet it with you. Some of the challenges I face in my work so far is some people, some startup founders coming to me that, okay, Francis, this is what I want to do, but before I share it with you, come and sign non-disclosure. Right now, I will just take a giggle. I will laugh that, okay, bro, sis, forget about it. Do you know how many ideas they've shared with me in the last 10 years? How many ideas I myself have come up with or from my sleep is giving me sleepless night? Right. So you need to be realistic, one, with your idea. One of the basic things you need to search for is, okay, is this idea out there? It's part of your market research. Is it out there? And not just on Google. Do better. Join professional organizations. Pay money for legal search. And when we're talking about legal search, this would have to, the lawyer would have to go to this IP rights platform to go search that, okay, is there a similar logic? Is there a similar algorithm that has already been patented, right? For me personally, to date, I have 11 patents, although within Nigeria. So if that idea is so unique, is shocking you, let me use that word, is torturing you, be realistic. Do legal search, do market research. If that idea is not out there, before you even start inconveniencing people with non-disclosure agreements, things like that, before you share the idea with them. So your idea alone could worth millions and could worth nada, right? Then what's your burn rate? Burn rate is usually a projection. That is, if you do not have any revenue coming in or any operation yet. Burn rate is how fast do you spend money? Or should 1 million naira come to you for your idea, how many seconds will it take you to finish? How many minutes? How many days? Right? That's what we refer to as burn rate. Then how long will it take you to raise the next round? Now, you might have come across something like pre-seed, seed funding, Series A, Series B, Series C, right? This particular fundraise or fundraises, they are specific for specific growth phase. So even in your pre-seed, you can raise pre-seed as many times as possible if you've not grown out of that phase. So let's say the product you want to develop is maybe if you want to develop it to a standard, it will cost you like 10 million naira. But at first, you are able to raise 1.52 million naira. After you spend that one, your next raise is not maybe seed funding. No. Since you are still in that particular growth phase, if you raise another 2 million, it's still your pre-seed. If you raise another 3 million to bring everything to like 6.5, it's still your pre-seed, right? So growth phase determines the name of the kind of fundraise you go for. So please do not be ignorant out there and say that, oh, we've raised maybe 6 million for your pre-seed. The next round you are raising is maybe seed funding. No, these are attached directly to growth phases. So what instruments? What will the funding be used for? You need a funding plan. It might not be enough, or everything might not be contained in your pitch deck, right? But what will the funding be used for? Especially, I will talk to us as a Nigerian talking to Nigerians. Right now, the investment community, they are very skeptical of us. We might have seen it in the news thereabouts, how many companies have shut down after raising funds. So they are looking at us with a very thorough eye this time around. But should you be prepared to take VC fund, right, or external funding? Be prepared to receive all sorts of questions. And if you are not comfortable with it, you can walk out or assign someone else is comfortable with meeting such is it shaggy? Let me use the word. Yes, if you know your personality can't take those kind of shege, assign someone who can take that shege. But if all of you can't take that shege, then walk away. All right, so what will the fund be used for? They will ask you, even how many jerrycan of water do you want to buy? How many sachets of water will you people be drinking in a day? Fundraising is not when you now get the money, you change your own accommodation, you change, it's no longer free money, right? It's no longer free money. These days, or in this 2024, should you take maybe proceed of $100,000, except if those investors are, let me say in quotes, generous, that is when they will not make you sweat it out. They will even employ you in their company so that you would or in another company that they have shares so that you will begin to pay back from your salary. So please, if part of the intention or your motivation to raise money is free money, no, it's different right now. Then how much traction do you have? Traction is, are you in the market? Have customers started patronizing you, paying for that innovation, for that product, or for that services you are offering? So how many people have paid you last month, this month, since you started? That is why it is good to have your financial documentation intact. So even if you've started using, or when the idea came out, you use the personal account, make sure that no any other transaction comes to that account, so that you can always generate or print out or share that statement of account, right? You will not have any other transaction. Is it coming into that particular account? But hey, this is 2024. Even to register a private limited liability company in Nigeria right now is between 50 and 70K. So you should save up, do that, and so many free accounts of free fintech that will give you a business account. All right, the next one, how much dilution or debt can your business take? So like I said, in the fundraising plan, there's something called save agreements. Save is more like, give us this money, we are going to use it, or we are going to it's going to go into the business. Then after like 1 year, you can come back, and based on the progress that we've made, we can then agree if it's going to be equity contribution, you are going to be giving share, or we are going to return the money back to you. So there's a fundraising plan like that, safe agreement for future equity, right? So whatsoever is the level of your business or the growth plan you are driving at would inform which of the fundraising plan you would go, right? Then what should you call the rand? So are you pre or post revenue? What is the revenue? You have paying customer for your services, you have paying customer for your programs, you have paying customer on your application, on your websites, you have subscribers, right? There are people out in the market, from the market, that pays you for what you are doing. So that is revenue. So pre-revenue means that people are using these products or these services, and you are yet to start charging them, or you are not charging them yet. So please, let's get it clear. You could be offering other services that are complementary. Like, okay, maybe your website is where you post news, but after a while you got it monetized with Google ad or AdMob, right? The money coming from Google is a revenue, but in this sense, what we are talking about is not the revenue we are looking for, or what the investors are looking for. I hope that's been clear. So we still have a lot like details, but I will just make that clear. So some of you will do freemium, yeah, something like that. That's okay. You give some certain services free, you charge for all those things, or some other things later on. Yeah, it works for a while, right? So if it is pre or post revenue would mean that, okay, for the past 3 months, we've been getting clients to pay. And also, if you want to go look for money or fundraise during pre-revenue, the factors or the questions they will ask you is different from once you started generating revenue. And let me just add it here. Once you started generating revenue, please wait 6 months. Make sure you are able to cater for those clients that are paying you for at least 6 months before you fundraise. That's one of the minimum qualification for post-revenue people. Then what's your analyzed revenue? This is a 12-month calendar, right? How much have you made in the last 1 year, which can be backed up with your financial statements. Then do you have product market fit? Okay, product managers or who taking product management, who would understand this perfectly. So what they mean by product market fit is that your product is the way the people in the market wants it or likes it. Your product or service is the way or is in a way that people in the market, they like it. And who are the markets? Just anybody who is in need of that and can pay you for that. So they've seen it, they like it, although there could be room for improvement, but that particular status that they like it and I can pay for it, it fits me. That's your product market fit. Then how big is your round? For some of us, we will say we are looking for pre-seed of $1 million. Bring your head, let me knock you. Bring your head, let me do what? Let me knock you. All right, so your pre-seed, yes, the idea could worth $1 million, right? But it's very rare that you will see investors who will listen to you for $1 million for pre-seed. So excuse me, I'm a little bit tattered, right? So I will stop sharing and I will share again so that we conclude. Please, can you all hear me? If you can hear me, please. All right, all right. Thank you, thank you. Okay. So this is the second part and the conclusive aspect of my presentation today. So you want to get money from external investors. The most common ones are angel investors and venture capitalists or companies are all around us. So what to expect from each funding round? Pre-seed, you should have your MVP, which is called minimum viable products. It means that these are the most important features of your application. Not too much story, not too much luxury, or no luxury itself, right? Then, as we've seen, products, minimum viable products, team minimal. And when we talk about minimal, or once we mention team, it means it's more than one person. You could just be two, right? You could just be two. You could be three, you could be four, but once it's getting above five, you guys are no longer minimal, right? The team is minimal. Then check size, less than $2 million. Less than $2 million. So for this year, I was able to do for two companies, right? They put me on retainer actually. Then I spoke to some investors on their behalf, and they were for this year, they were able to get a check of a total of $400,000. Although their ask was like 500, but splitting it into two, they got 50% of their ask, right? Then traction revenue. Now, if you have an MVP and you're having a revenue or a traction of $500,000, they will ask you, why are you raising? If you have a revenue of $500,000 or less than that. So some businesses or MVP, you could be making money, like money can be coming in, but you are not profitable, right? An example is Jumia. Jumia only became profitable late last year since they started operating their business. Can someone say, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, bro, yeah.
Jumia was never or has never been profitable until late last year. So money could be coming into your business, right? And you are not making profit. So this revenue is not talking about profit. Oh, is that okay? The money that is coming into you, Money Point, they are operating okay, or monthly, they are operating in billions. They are operating in billions, but they didn't start making money until okay, it's a confidential information. Sorry about that. So, but there are some businesses, even if you start out right, the profits you all can decide to be putting it back into the business, right? Or you can be paying yourself salaries and the rest be putting it back into the business. That's why things like or clauses like vestation period, anybody you are giving shares to, even there are some ideas that even within 3 months they could eat profit, right? Then the investors will start parading themselves like wolves that okay, share dividend now, pay out dividend, right? So the minimum or the best vesting period for any share is 4 years, so that even if they want to sell it, they will sell it at the price that they bought it. So, but if you guys now decide that okay, we've been making profit for the past 2 years, let's start sharing dividends to investors, fine, quite all right. So equity and dilution. So this means that let's say for your pre-seed, you are able to distribute 20% share of the company out, and now you are ready for seed, right? It's not a must that you share the remaining 80 in quotes. Even out of that 20, right, you could reduce the number of shares for each person by giving them cash. What do I mean? Say I have 10% share from pre-seed, or I was able to give maybe $100,000 for 10% share of your company at a pre-seed. Then during the seed round, there's now another investor bringing maybe $500,000. So dilution will happen that okay, me Francis, I'm going to give 5% back to the company, maybe for like $20,000, right? But my share will now be 5,000, will now be 5%. So this is called equity dilution. So it's not a must that the remaining 80% or 60% that is left, you share it again. You can dilute the existing shares. Are we getting it? So for the seed, we have PMF, limited core, etc. So I'm not biased, I'm not judging us, but I know for some of us, the reason why we are here is that we are around this range of either looking for seed funding, right? And stuff like that. So team, limited core, what do they mean by core? There are people that work for businesses and there are people that work on the business. Let's get the difference clear. There are people that work for the businesses and there are people that work on the business. So the engineering people, the developers, they work on that idea, go. That's the main business. But the marketing, the sales, they work for the business. Marketing, right? Even graphics designer, social media, they work for the business. But talk about operations, talk about the development team, business developers, technical developers, they work on the business. So what do they mean by limited core? It means that even for the developers, you do not have too much. You do not have maybe 5 developers, 2 front end, 3 back end, or 2 front end, 1 back end, 1 DevOps. No. That is too much, especially in the age of AI and automation now. So the core people, that is the people that work on the business, should be limited. Then the check size, $2 million to $7 million. Traction revenue, right? It should be less than $3 million. Equity dilution, 10 to 30%. That is, they'll be looking to take as big as 30% shares, right? Then Series A PMF plus, that is product market fit and above. And what do we mean by product? Let me use example of OPay. If OPay should give a survey within 6 hours, OPay will get a response of 235,000. So let's say they want to do a survey, they want to engage with their customers. Okay, which other features should we launch next? Things like that. They will get 235 responses within 6 hours. If we should not leave it for 24 hours, it's 700,000 plus. So for a company like this, they will be using a kind of production technique that we call MPI. That's new product innovation. And they've been doing that. There's no month that OPay did not add additional feature to their application. Right. So that is an example of a PMF plus. They've attained product market fit and they are just playing around features as they like. Then for the team, core plus, it means that the core people, then plus extras or extra links. Then check size 4 million to $20 million. Then traction revenue, you should be doing less than or equals to $10 million. Then equity dilution 10 to 30%. So these are for profit people. We just quickly, because I think I hear about Yano talking about social enterprise. Yes, for social enterprise, legally there are ways for you to make money. For social enterprises, there are legal ways or legal modes for you to raise money. Okay, donors, crowdfunding, things like that. Yes, you can use that to make money. But does that mean that if you want substantial fund for maybe a program of your mind or for an impact, how would you go about that? Yes, grants are there. Grants are there. You can apply for grants. But the one I would lay emphasis on right now is PPP. That is public-private partnership. So currently, I'm on a project with Lagos State to do, okay, what they want to do is wastewater management, literacy workshops, sensitization, development of tools for wastewater management in Lagos. But the agency itself at first, right, is a government agency that relies on taxes or budget. In their reserve, they do not have that money. So they met with Lagos State. Lagos State said that he's going to help them with half of the money for it, that they should go and look for other sponsors. So they were able to talk to USA Aid, and USA Aid said they are going to join them. That's provided remaining half of the budget that Lagos State has provided. So in that sense now, there are two sponsors, financial sponsors, and there's one project owner. And the project has kicked off. It is ongoing. So, and let me shock you, the project is in Nigerian money is 1.5 billion for 12 months. So as a social enterprise, PPP will give you access to government, or it means that you are partnering with public agencies thereabout to is it fund your programs. And in your project proposals, you will calculate your salary, you will calculate your well-being, your welfare as well. And yes, there are many more organizations, WHO, UNDP, etc. So one of the ways or your revenue generating model could be PPP. There are other means, but for the sake of our conversation tonight, I will just talk about PPP for social impact. Another one could be crowdfunding as well. Yes, we all know what, let me assume that we all know what crowdfunding is, right? And you just have to, like, is it pay the platform for the percentage to process all those things? So finally, one of the key things I would like to share with us is that whatever the idea or the service or the program or the innovation you are bringing out, your finance is important. The finance is important, not even for producing or to making the solution accessible by millions. Not only just that, and your finance has to be in order. In order, like, I mean, Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Right? Let me still use this Money Point founder, Mr. Tosin and Oloruda. He was even borrowing money from his wife's salary, and he's a family man. When he started out, they raised money, yes, but him, for his own maintenance, he was still borrowing money. All the core teams or the funding teams, they were not even living on the money that they raised. They prefer to put it in other developments. And today, if Money Point wants to buy a jet, they can do that without question. So there's order even in finance. Should you raise money or should an investor come? Sit down. You need financial literacy. You should be able to read financial documents. I think myself and the CEO of Workmate, we had an experience one time at FUTMinna. It was a negligence on our part on that particular project. So the finance officer was siphoning money, but we didn't detect it on time. So which led to like a very poor impact on the whole project as a whole. But nevertheless, here we are today. So, ladies, gentlemen, Nigerians and non-Nigerians, invaders, aliens like Yano, if you are going to raise money in the Nigerian market, there are still some factors you need to know. But I think this is good enough for us to establish a foundation or for we to go back to the drawing board. This is where I will end my presentation. And I think Mr. Abu or Iyano, you can take it from here. And I'll still be here to take questions as well. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. That's so excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. Well, only a FUTMite can give so much like that. I'm a proud FUTMite as well. I'm happy, I'm proud. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. Really grateful for that wonderful section. I truly have learned a lot. And the one thing I will take out from your session is, I think I noted it down. You just have to be responsible. For you to say you want to respond, you must have that intentionality to be responsible and be accountable. I think it's a very key thing. I think you just said it. That's what I took in summary. You have to be responsible and you have to be ready to be accountable for everything you do, from every stage you have, the plans you draw, and how you implement those plans is very key. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. It was really a wonderful section. So I would leave the room open for questions. But before the questions come, I want to see more reactions to Mr. Francis' presentation. I'm sure we enjoyed it. I'm sure we have questions ready. I'm sure we have one clarification or the other we need. But while we are getting those ready, I need more reactions. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. I'm sorry, that your name, that your surname, I cannot still call it yet. I'm a foreign Yoruba girl. All right, so I don't know. Do anybody have any question? Anybody? If you have a question, just raise up your hand, and I will call you. Anybody? Any question for Mr. Francis Ajadioni? Oh, sorry, I don't know if I got that name. Anybody? Any question? You want to ask any question? You can drop it on the chat box, or you raise your hands, and then we ask him the question. Anybody? I'm not sure I'm seeing anybody's hand up. Okay, I think we are clear with this section and we understood how to raise one. And I like the fact that he was talking as though we are billionaires on this call. Like, I like the fact he was not just calling small money, he was calling big money. So guys, your startup are starting from a big level. So be ready to go and go big. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis, and thank you so much for your presentation. I'll hand over to Mr. Abu now to continue from here. I will take the closing remarks and reactions. Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you, Mr. Francis. I will have a tete-a-tete with you after this time because this is just so much value in just such a short time. So much shared, so much to be absorbed. I don't know if during the time I was having network issues, whether you were able to share your details in the in-call message section so that people can connect with you and read more about your work and all of that. So, Lisa, if you didn't, we would appreciate you drop me an email, LinkedIn handle, whatever social media platform that you are most active on, that we can connect with you and all of that. We'd appreciate to have that on the chat session. Meanwhile, this has been like a really exciting time. This is one of the topics that every entrepreneur always likes to have discussed because we have a lot of challenges with funding, starting from identifying the actual funding we need before going further to how to access that funding and then every other thing that pertains to it. But you've broken it down, you've given us a masterclass on this very digestible bit, and we are able to comprehend. So we really appreciate you. Thank you so, so much for sharing with us. And please open up to welcoming us in your DM as we inquire about other things. All right. So just for the last time, can we appreciate Mr. Francis for coming to the Startup Acceleration Workshop by Workmate Technologies? Thank you so much, sir. All right. We've had a very exciting, impactful, and thoughtful night. And I'm happy that we are still on the call to this time and we gained so much value from these sessions that we've had tonight. We'll be having our concluding session, our concluding, a graduation session next week. And we hope to see more activity in the community, the chat group. Let's talk and share and see ways to help each other grow before the expiration of this program and then explore other opportunities that we can all work into. If you have ideas that you want us to share, if you have other programs that you like to see Workmate Technologies roll out, please do let us know. We are very open. We respond promptly to your chats and your messages so that we can all achieve our corporate responsibilities together. We want to see a shift in the tech ecosystem in Nigeria. We want to see good value, we want to see growth, we want to see technological advancement, we want to make sure that startups are getting the support, the right support that they need. And Workmate is paying his dues and contributing his quota to this particular development. So it's been a long night. We really appreciate every one of you. If you have any questions, please do well to write them out. If you are not in the community, you are not in the community platform, please indicate now. Although a couple of people have left the meeting, but please indicate so that we can add the community, or alternatively, I'll just share the community link. I just share the community. You can that we